do something different this morning. First, good to be here. Sorry to see so few out, but yeah, you know, the weather, yeah. Not a problem, but yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start into the presentation here, but in the middle just want to share something from the Word, and then I'll continue on with the presentation. So something a little weird this morning. I'd like to pray before we begin. Father, thank you so much, oh God, for your goodness and your grace. Thank you for bringing each one out here safely this morning. We pray that this time would be a special time, not just for those present here, but those that are listening. God, that you would bless your word as it goes forth. As we look at also at the needs in Mexico, that you would challenge our hearts, God, in order to be a missionary wherever we are, God, and to take serious our responsibilities in relation to seeing that the gospel continues to go out to the whole world. And thank you again for your goodness and grace. Thank you for your Son that you sent to provide for us such a great and amazing salvation. Cause us to renew in us a love and appreciation for you, that you might be honored through us, God, that we might desire to live for you. In Jesus' name, amen. Very good. Okay, a little update. What I'm going to do, Jose, I'm going to go like this. That means for you to advance it. Yep. And a little update to the family. This is the latest, well, a fairly recent picture of our family. Obviously, you recognize us on the left. Caitlin was married back a year and a half ago, June 1st last year. Her husband, Andrew, that's them on the right, and they're living right now in Lynchburg, Virginia. Both of them are grads of Liberty University, both with Caitlin with a degree in psychology, and Andrew with a degree in math, some type of math. And both are working to pay off her debt. His debt is all paid off, but her debt's still outstanding. It wasn't huge because she got a scholarship as a missionary kid that covered basically everything, but it required a couple FAFSA loans from the government, you know, every semester, and that accumulated, and now they're having to pay that off. They're hoping, actually the hope was that this month they would finish paying it all off and then start taking steps. They're going to be sent out by Heritage Baptist Church in Lynchburg, both members there, and the church has agreed. They're going to be going through some training that the church offers to all the missionaries that they have to go through, and then hope to go through the training with Ethnos 360, or what used to be New Tribes Mission, and hope to go out as missionaries. Haven't picked a country yet. We're still trying to pull them to Mexico. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's what's happening with them. Jordan, our next oldest, is stationed. He's in the Army, stationed in Arlington, Virginia. So all of our kids are in Virginia. He's stationed in Arlington, right? Anybody ever been to Arlington Cemetery? Never? One? Okay, has been. Well, Arlington Cemetery is right across the river from the Lincoln Memorial. I mean, if you right across the Potomac, it's right there. And Fort Myer, it's called, is adjacent to the cemetery. So that's where for example, he's part of the Old Guard, and part of the Old Guard is the guys that do the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Well, anyway, for those of you that know about that. Jordan's a military policeman, and he's stationed there. He's got 3 more years to go. Can't wait for that to get done already. But yeah, pray for Jordan. It's not an easy job, and you know, being in the Army, they run things. We're really thankful that Jordan has been able to get 2 weeks off for Christmas, and actually not this week, but next week. Next week starts that time, I think on the 15th or the 16th. So we'll be able to all be together as a family because after this we're headed down to, in a little over a week, we'll be headed down to Lynchburg to be all together. Well, unless the Army says, no, we got some training for you to do because we get some riots coming up and we need to be ready for it. And that's happened already, so, but you know how that is. Ryan, our youngest, just graduated from Liberty this year with a degree in criminal justice. But instead of going into law enforcement right away, he decided, we think wisely, to hold off and wait. I think Ryan's still looking at it from the perspective that he doesn't know how the Lord's going to use this. I think he's very open to be a missionary. It's been evident to him the Lord's leading in getting this degree, but you know, how can this be used? I think that's what he's kind of looking at. So a lot of his future, he was considering going into the Air Force. I think that's maybe fading a little bit right now. So pray for Ryan for guidance. Right now he's just working at Walmart, unloading trucks. Lots of job security because lots of things are closed, and where does everybody go, you know? Have a super, an easy way to get the virus is because tons of people are going to Walmart. So anyway, that's what he's doing. He loves it. So that's where he's at right now. So everybody's in Virginia. And here we are up here. So Lord willing, in a week and a half, we'll be heading down. Lord willing, next Tuesday, not this Tuesday, but a week from this Tuesday, we'll be heading down to be together for Christmas. And then from there, we got to book it back to Mexico. So a little update on our family. Go ahead, let's go to the next one. I'd like to invite you to turn your Bibles to John. Got to hit it again. There it is. John 21. John chapter 21. I'm going to be reading the whole passage for love of the context, but we're going to be focusing in only on verses 15 to 17. This is Jesus' confrontation with Peter after, just before actually rising, after rising from the dead, just before he ascended into heaven here. And starting verse 1, it says, after these things Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. And in this way he showed himself. Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael of Cana of Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, that means James and John, right? And two others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said unto them, I'm going fishing. They said to him, we are going with you also. They went out and immediately got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. But when the morning had now come, Jesus stood on the shore, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Then Jesus said to them, children, have you any food? They answered him, no. And he said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast the net, and now they were not able to draw it in because of the multitude of fish. Therefore, that disciple whom Jesus loved, that would be John, that's the way he refers to himself as the writer of this gospel, right? That disciple whom Jesus loved, said to Peter, it is the Lord. Now, when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he had removed it, and plunged into the sea. But the other disciples came in the little boat, for they were not far from land, but about 200 cubits, it's about 100 yards, dragging the net with the fish. Then, as soon as they had come to land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish which you have just caught. Simon Peter went up and dragged the net to land, full of large fish, 153. And although there were so many, the net was not broken. Jesus said to them, come and eat breakfast. Yet none of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? Knowing that it was the Lord. Jesus then came and took the bread and gave it to them, and likewise the fish. Now, this is the third time Jesus showed himself to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. This is the part we want to focus in on. So when they had eaten breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, feed my lambs. He said to him a second time, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. he said to him, "Tend my sheep?" He said to him a third time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him a third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep." All right, little quiz here for you. Get you warmed up. What's the context here? Well, you already advanced it a little bit. What's the context of this? Well, Jesus has just risen from the dead. No, you can go ahead and leave it up. That's fine. Jesus has just risen from the dead, right? How much time has passed, we don't know. It does mention in verse 14, this is just the third time since rising from the dead that he had presented himself to his disciples. We can assume that it probably wasn't a long time, maybe a couple of weeks, we don't know. Because Jesus spent a total of 40 days after his resurrection appearing to different groups. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 mentions that at one time he appeared to more than 500 of his disciples all at once. But he was appearing and disappearing kind of during that time with his disciples. This particular incident, I would assume, because it's just the third time, probably didn't take place too long after Jesus' resurrection. Let's just assume maybe a week. But it's probably just, we can say days, right? What was on Peter's mind at that time? What do you think? What had happened just before that? The night of Jesus, what happened to Peter? What did he do that night when Jesus... He denied him. What was on Peter's heart at that time? What do you think? I bet you he was dealing with a bunch of guilt, wondering, man. And he had just got done saying, "Lord, though everybody deny you, not me. Don't worry about me. And then within hours, he denies him 3 times. And then it says when the rooster crowed, he went out and wept bitterly. Oh, I bet you Peter was really facing it. And most of it is because what were they doing? Well, they weren't about the Lord's business necessarily. Was it bad for them to go fishing? Well, no. I mean, they got to eat, they got to live, There's nothing wrong with that. But it's interesting what they did. This is just days after the Lord's death and resurrection. We have Peter's denial. Go ahead to the next one. And then we have this, just what we all do when there's something wrong, we've done something, and something weighing heavy on our heart, sin. What do we tend to do? What do I tend to do? I tend to retreat to something familiar. Right? I don't know what it is. In Peter's case, fishing. He knew fishing. He had grown up fishing. His whole life was fishing. He was a fisherman. Comical a little bit because they went and fished all night and got skunked. And it wasn't until Jesus shows up and says, "Oh, just put it on the other side of the boat." And haul in this great big haul of fish. But we tend to do that. We look for our comfort zone, whatever it is. I mean, it might be, I don't know, it might be, nowadays, it might be your phone, some game. I don't know. Computer, might be, I don't know, your car, you go out for a drive. I don't know. We all have our own comfort zones. It might be, some of you ladies may be cooking. You're looking at me like, what? No way. I don't know. But we all tend to do that, don't we? To just kind of distract ourselves from what's going on in our hearts instead of facing it. And I think this is what we see here with Peter. Go ahead. Let's see, on to the next one. This part, when the Lord confronts him, verses 15 through 17, there's a lot here that we could talk about, and it creates a few questions. Why does he say it 3 times? Well, some people think, well, it's because he denied him 3 times. I don't know. I'm not convinced that has anything to do with it, but it might be. I don't know. But what I do know, what I'm sure of, is that Peter did not forget this confrontation. This stayed with him for the rest of his life, I can guarantee. Interesting in 1 Peter when he's writing and he's talking about exhorting the elders in chapter 5, he says, feed the flock of God that's among you. You know, the same words that Jesus, the exact same words that Jesus uses here. Feed my lambs, feed my sheep. Just interesting note there. And so, in these verses. But there's two questions he asks here. Go ahead, Jose. Two questions. First, I was going to mention this. That we notice that Peter doesn't, or the Lord doesn't come up to Peter and say, Peter, hey, it's time for a new, we got to do a little review, okay, on what you're supposed to be doing. No, he doesn't. He knows Peter doesn't need any more classes or anything like that. He didn't need to relearn how. He just needed to be reminded of what was really important. Just a little reminder. And what was the first question he asked? Peter, do you love me? Where does everything really, or should, everything we do, where should it come out of? If we are honest, now this is for each one of you and those listening, each one of you to just ask yourselves, do I love him? I'm going to be honest, sometimes it's like, I don't know if I could really answer that. And what's my motivation for what? Why did you come here this morning? Well, I'm part of the singing group, or I'm the pastor. I don't have any way out of it, whatever, you know. But there may be a number of motivations. But what should be our motivation for coming together? I mean, he does say, forsake not the assembling of yourselves together, right? So there's motivation. Just because of love for him, I want to do what he wants me to do. I know that's what but it's, where does it come out of? Is it because we feel obligated, or because, well, that's what everybody expects of me? Well, if I don't go, some relative is going to notice that I don't go, and they're going to think, oh, what a hypocrite. I don't know. There's no end of motivations right behind why we do the things that we do. But it really should be simply out of what? Love for him. And he asked 3 times, Peter, do you love me? And then, in the light of that, feed my sheep. Well, what's involved in feeding the sheep? There's a whole broad thing we can talk about on that. It doesn't necessarily only mean feeding other believers. I mean, all we like sheep have gone astray. We've turned every one to his own way. That's in reference to all humanity. We're all like sheep. We're born like sheep. That's not a compliment. Any of you that know sheep, sheep are really stupid animals. I've had just a little contact with sheep, and I've known people and talked to them about how stupid sheep are. So, that's interesting. They're so stupid that, they're kind of like goats, they'll lead anything. Well, sheep, you lead them to something and they'll think, oh, food, and just eat it. And it's not really bright. You've got to be careful to make sure they have access only to good food. You lead them to something in there that's going to be damaging to them. They don't know the difference. They don't. They just, they're not brilliant. And isn't that a lot like us? We really have a lot of times trouble discerning what we really should be feeding on. Right? Am I the only one? Or that's really the way it is. So it's interesting here. First, the question, do you love me? And then, feed my lambs. Go ahead. So, to the next one. I wrote this down. You're probably wondering, short accounts, what's that got to do with it? I'm a graduate of New Brunswick Bible Institute, and one of the teachers I had back in the day was Mr. Robbins. I don't know if any of you met him. His son, Danny, I call him Danny, I don't know, Mr. He's probably Mr. Daniel Robbins. I don't know what he is now, but I was a student when he was there. And Mr. Robbins lived right across the street from the school in a big house, and his study room. We all learned it. I learned it because one time I was invited over by Mrs. Robbins, and she made some most delicious little tarts, and anyway, I found out that he had his office up in this kind of on the corner of the house. It's like a rounded, I don't know what you call it, like a tower kind of thing, but it's part of the house, and it's on the front. It's an older house. It's probably 150 years old or something. Anyway, up on the top of that, he had his study, and he'd go up, and that's where he had his devotions and everything. And I remember having my room on the south side, I think 2 of the 3 years I was there, and if I remember right. And I could see down, if I got up early in the morning, anytime after 4 o'clock, the light was on up there. And you know what he was doing? He was praying for all the students. And he'd get up, have his devotions, and spend time praying. And back then, they didn't have computers. This is, 79 to 82. Okay, so I'll give you a little. And he would go through the trouble of, for every student, he would take one of the pictures that we would send in our applications. He would get one, and he would make up and paste that picture and make up a thing and take notes on prayer requests and anything he could find about us. And so he would come up and say, "Hey, Earle, how's your family? And good. Is your dad saved yet?" You know about that. My dad was the same. No, not yet. Praying for your dad. Praying for your family. And he would say that to all of us. He would know it. And it wasn't like he had this brilliant memory. Not that at all. He was just a very disciplined man. One of the things he repeated in his classes, and it didn't matter what class it was in, every time he had a chance, he would repeat this question, or exhortation, I should say. Keep short accounts with God. Keep short accounts with God. What does that mean? When there's sin there, confess it. Don't let it sit. Don't let it fester. Keep short accounts. You got something wrong. Is something wrong with somebody else? Cool. Deal with that, but keep short accounts with God. And that's stayed in my mind all these years. Keep short accounts with God. And I think that's part of what he was saying here. Do you love me? Do you love me, Peter? If you really love me, you're not going to let sin sit there, right? You're going to deal with it. Go ahead to the next one. Then the last thing is the real issue here that Jesus comes down to in exhorting him to feed my sheep, whether it's evangelizing, whether it's just encouraging someone else. Maybe someone just needs a hug, a COVID hug, 6 feet away. And the real issue is not our ability. I'm convinced more and more of this as I grow older, is that God couldn't care less about our abilities. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, right? God hath chosen what? The foolish, the weak, the base, the despised, the nobodies, the things that are nothing, right? To be used by him. Is that anybody encouraged by that? I sure am. That's what God says. He's not interested. Why? Why does he choose? Because people that recognize their need, that are not so capable, are more apt to what? Lord, I need you. I can't do this. Yes. And that's what really God is looking for. Not our ability, but our what? Availability to him. Just like Isaiah. When God, in Isaiah chapter 6, who shall I send? Who shall we send? Who will go? Isaiah said what? Here am I. Send me. And that's really what God is interested in. Okay, go ahead on that. So just a few thoughts there from the Word that hopefully be a little bit of challenge and a blessing to you. Mexico. Let's talk a little bit about Mexico. These are a few shots of people. If you came into Mexico and just drove in and started looking around, you would see people and you would assume everybody spoke what language? Spanish, right? Everybody speaks Spanish in Mexico. Not everybody speaks Spanish, and you would probably be looking at, immediately, even upon crossing the border, you would probably be looking at a number of people that, if they speak any Spanish, it's very little. And they may not speak any. Just the way it is. Go ahead and keep going. In fact, the National Institute of Linguistics, or of Indigenous Languages, I should say, in Mexico has determined that there are 364 linguistic variants in Mexico. What we mean by that is really languages, but the reason why they call them linguistic variants is you have this phenomenon in Mexico where you have like groups that were one language group back, a dozen decades ago, or maybe hundreds of years ago in some cases, but they split up. And then because this group lived over here and this group lived over here, there was no contact between them, and this one was influenced by this other ethnic groups or by the national language or whatever, the language changed over time. And this one changed. And even though they at one point spoke identical, the same exact language, now it is a linguistic variant. And they can't even understand one another. Over time, languages change. English, and it's a written language, right? Written. And the language has changed over time. Over our lifetime, right, Greg? I mean, young people, there's new words. I mean, if you said tweet back when we were kids, well, that's what the sound a bird makes. Not anymore, the dictionary's constantly adding new meanings to words, or there's new words coming into, and things are changing. And that's the way language is. And all languages are like that, all of them. And especially with an unwritten language where you have people splitting off. Maybe a family or a couple different family groups fight and they decide one moves away. And then over time, so this is what we have there. We have language groupings that they call groupings, but yet each one of those groups will need their own Bible translation. Completely different. They can't have one for all of them. So that's why it's called linguistic variance. Go ahead. So and that's as you look at, there it is. Ethnos 360 have been serving almost 60 years. Actually, I think it is 60 years now. I got to update this. I got to check on that. What year? Among the ethnic groups in Mexico, and right now we're currently working among the Triqui and Mixteco. Those are both tribes, actually from southern Mexico, down in Oaxaca, in the lower middle there, and they moved up to northern Baja to work in strawberries. Everybody buy strawberries and it says product of Mexico? They probably handled it. It's a huge strawberry thing going on, growing and factory up in northern Baja California, and that's where even arriving up here. Recently, we bought some and we saw, ooh, the price was terrible, but product of Mexico. That's where it came from, northern Baja. And so we working among the Triqui, Mixteco in Baja California, and among the Nahuatl, Tarahumara, Tepehuan, Cora, and Guajillo in the states of Chihuahua, which is the northern middle, where we're in the city of Chihuahua, which is the capital of the state of Chihuahua. And then down below that is the state of Durango, where we work amongst the Tepehuan. And then below that is the state of Nayarit, actually in the west coast, kind of middle there, and just north of Guadalajara. I don't know if you can see it there, but that's where we work amongst the Cora. And now in the state of Chiapas, which is way down along the border, where you see the Yucatan Peninsula. Down below that, that's the border with, kind of looks like this. Okay, that's the border with. No, Belize is up higher. Yeah. Next country. Where Paco's from? How am I forgetting this? Yeah. Anyway, that's that state that's adjacent to that border. I'll think of it probably after we're all done. is the state of Chiapas, and we just started to work with the Sentado. And this, it didn't show up. Okay, but that's just beginning. Go ahead. So that's the real challenge of Mexico. We're just beginning. There's so many needs, so much work to be done. And so really be praying for the country of Mexico. Jesus said what? The harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. And he said, pray therefore, the Lord of the harvest, and who sent forth laborers. And so, any of you interested? Talk to us. There's a lot of needs out there. And these are people that, were born without the opportunity to hear the gospel. The command's still there, right? Has it changed? Mark 16:15, go ye into what? All the world. Preach the gospel to what? Every creature. That has not changed. And there's still people waiting to hear for the first time in their language the gospel. And so we've got work to do. What did God ask Isaiah? Whom shall I send? And Isaiah responded, here am I, Lord. Send my brother. He's really perfect for this. No. Go ahead. Where we live, our family, we live in the city of Chihuahua. Chihuahua's don't click it yet. Leave it right there. Chihuahua's a city of about 1 million, a little less than this whole population of the state of Maine. Only one city. It's a good-sized city. We have the honor of working there in the city. I don't really like cities, but for whatever reason, the Lord's had us. When we were in Colombia, we were in Bogota for a time, and yeah, we've been in cities, big cities. But you may be wondering, we live in the city of Chihuahua. Do we have one? Yes, we do. Her name is Peanut. This picture was sent to us recently. We got another family in the church that we're active in, taking care of her, and they went and took her on a walk and took a picture and said, here she is, she's doing fine. So anyway, go ahead. Where we live, this is a shot. If you look at this picture, sorry you guys that are listening, you can't see it, but it's a picture looking south from the north, sort of north-ish end. There's still a lot of city behind where this picture was taken, but looking south at a swath of the city. And that in the foreground, those of you that think just because you drive a Ford, it's an American vehicle, that's a Ford plant in the foreground. And we live not far from there, go ahead, right about there. In fact, we can hear the siren when they change shifts. Oh, I can't remember what it sounds like, but I think you can hear that from the Ford plants. It's pretty close. Go ahead. We have 2 Bible institutes in Mexico, and the rest of we have one of course, in the city of Chihuahua where we work, and then another one in Mexico City. And then the rest of the training is also near Chihuahua. It's just to the north of the city. It's about 15-20 minutes drive from our house to get there. And so that's the central part of our training program. And what we do is train, basically we want to communicate to the churches, we are giving you an opportunity to send people out, right, to train, to be missionaries. And we'll give them the training and provide for them the work, the team that they need to be missionaries. But it's your responsibility to send them out. So we try to work with the local church in encouraging them, here's what you need to fulfill the Great Commission. Okay, basically. I'm really summing up there, but go ahead with the next one. So again, 2 Bible institutes in Mexico. This is, go ahead. This is our Mexico City team. Just 2 families right now in Mexico City. And then here's a shot of the Chihuahua team, a little bit bigger there. That's the Bible Institute team. We actually have, and we have others that are in the rest of the training. It's divided into two parts. 2 years for Bible Institute, which we teach in, and then 2 years for the rest of the training, which covers how to learn an unwritten language, teaching literacy to the ethnic group that you're in, breaking down and learning learning the language, breaking it down, Bible translation, all what's needed to know in order to plant a church amongst an ethnic group. Let's see. Pray for our group right now. Obviously, we're tremendously affected by COVID. Go ahead and go to the next one. Yeah, we're having to, it's much more strict there, so you can be thankful. Way more strict, and they could close us down if they found out that we weren't social distancing enough. And so we made sure, this is how we started out with the orientation. Social distancing, everybody wears a mask, and it's been really strict. So really pray for us. We've been there now 12 years, 12 and a half. And so, longest we've ever been in one place. We add it all up, and so we're thankful for our time there. You can go slowly through these next few pictures. These are just some shots of, go ahead and just click once in a while. These are just some shots. Some of them are shots of the whole student body, or most of the student body. We could never get everybody together, but most of them together. Because we have a lot of people coming in from outside, some people only take 1 hour classes or 2 or 3 hours, and so they're only coming in certain days. So we pick a day and let them know, hey, if you can come in, come in for the picture. But that's where we're at, and it's just for you guys to kind of get a feel. Okay, it's not a big group. The most that we can handle probably is around 40, and we have had close to that amount. Right now, there's only 13, mostly because of COVID, parents being hesitant to send their kids so they don't die, and swallowed and drank all the Kool-Aid that this is a deadly, a death sentence. So I better not go there. I might be offending somebody, but anyway, we've had COVID, okay, our whole family, and my in-laws, which are high risk in their 70s. And, yes. I mean, if you get the flu, can you die of the flu? Yeah, you can. You can do that with COVID too, it's possible, but anyway, sorry, we'll continue on. These are just some shots. This is a most recent shot of our graduates that have finished complete training. Just graduated earlier this year. Graduated, they didn't really have a ceremony or anything because of COVID, same thing. They wouldn't allow big meetings at that time. I think they were headed down to like 30 or something, I don't know. So anyway, if you look at this group of the couple on the upper left-hand side are part of the Chiapas team. The guy in the upper left corner, he is he's tribal, and so is his wife, but she's from another tribe in Mexico, the Guajillo, that's actually in the state of western part of Chihuahua State. And they got married, and they're working down in Chiapas with his people. And so she's having to learn his native tongue. She speaks Spanish real well, and Guajillo, and he speaks Spanish. So they converse, for the most part, probably in Spanish, but they're working with his people down there in Chiapas. The couple on the right, with the baby, he's holding the baby. He's from Panama. And they're back in Panama now, working with his people. She's actually from our church. She's a Mexican, and they got married after going through the training, and are in Panama working with his people. So pray for them. The rest are waiting to be sent out. Pray for them. Lord, those are graduates that go through the entire training, really struggle with being sent and struggle with having support. And as you know, it makes sense to have people, nationals, going out as missionaries. Well, one, because the church really isn't doing its job there, the first thing. In sending out missionaries to reach the people, but it's so much cheaper. We got to go. We got to maintain our passports and visas, and we got all these expenses and traveling back. They're right in their own country, So it's cheaper, it's just and they already know the national language, obviously, they live there, so they can move right in. And in the case of some of these guys where they're going back to reach their own people, and we've had a number come through, they already know the language, they can just move right back in and start right in. Or in the case of these couples where the wives don't know the language, in this case, but are learning it, but anyway, go ahead on, let's say. So a little bit more about our graduates. I put "our" in quotes there because obviously they're not our graduates, but but anyway, they're ones. They're going. This couple is in Tanzania, Africa. Again, Mexican couple. He's from Mexico City. She's from Chihuahua, right there in the city. We know our parents real well too. This couple is in both from Chihuahua City and in Papua New Guinea. This is our Triki team. It works with the people that grow the strawberries that you eat. At least sometimes when it's not a product of the USA, if it comes from Mexico. They're the ones that are working with the Triki in Baja California. This is the Guadajillo team. The ones that have the graduate caps, the couple with the baby. His name's Vicente. He's Guadajillo. He's actually brother to the girl that married the guy that's down in Chiapas. He's her older brother. Anyway, she is Cora. And she came to know the Lord from our Cora team, which is, again, all Mexican. That team, complete group of Mexicans that are working amongst the Cora. She came to know the Lord through them, came into the training, because she speaks real well Spanish. And she has some to learn as going through, and again, her and Vicente, they talk Spanish with one another. She's having to learn Guadajillo because they're working in Guadajillo. The guy that's inset there is Vicente's cousin. And he came through the Bible Institute, but bless his heart, really struggled because he had very little Spanish. He made it through the first year, but it's questionable how much he understood. He's a believer, but I think he would like to come back and go through again. He would have to start all over again because he thought he was going to get more out of it. His brother actually thought he would get more out of it than he did because he thought he was better in Spanish than he was, but didn't get much out of it. So pray for his name's Victorino. So go ahead and keep going. This next picture I think is this is the Cora team that led, and Emira, the girl that I was just mentioned, led her to the Lord, and that's, again, all Mexico, 2 Mexican families. Keep going. This is the team in Chiapas. Again, the couple, that's the couple again that was in that picture, the graduate picture, are on the right. And then the couple on the left, he's from Mexico City, she's from Chihuahua. And they met in the training and got married, and they're both working amongst the same down in Chiapas. This is just a picture of Beatriz, is the name of the girl that's married to the guy that's sent out. She's in that picture. It's you can't really see it, it's too small, but there it is. This is just a shot of the tribal works and that we're working in Mexico right now, and some of the ones the ones in green, that one's kind of faded green, but that's the Tarahumara, but we're working amongst the Guadajillo, Nahuatl, Tarahumara, Tepehuan, Cora, and Sertal, and also the Triki up in Baja California. And these are 3 tribes that we'd like to move into in Sonora, the state of Sonora. That's west of Chihuahua, just to the west of that is Sonora State. And we'd like to move into, or at least investigate moving into the Yaqui, Seris, and Mayo ethnic groups. Again, we need laborers. And so really pray that God would touch the hearts of people to come in and prepare themselves and be ready to go out, trust the Lord to reach these tribal groups. Again, on behalf of our family, we'd like to thank you for, number one, your faithful support every month. We literally could not do what we're doing without you. And so we appreciate you so much, your financial support. Hopefully by this you feel a little bit more about, it's not just the miners out there, but we're part of you. We're family, right? In the Lord. And what we're doing, you're doing. By you praying for us, by you supporting us financially, this is your work. We're all, you're just like us, we're spectators too, what God is doing. It's really cool. And hey, another thing, if you ever have an opportunity and you'd like to come down and visit, see what's going on, just let us know, hey, can we come down during this time? And seriously, and so we keep saying that to everybody, nobody's coming down. But yeah, it's not that dangerous down there. I would rather be in Chihuahua than Chicago. Not even close. Much safer. Yes, there's some violence that takes place, but it's very contained. It's more between cartels, and yes, sometimes there's shootouts, and you could be possibly in a huge city like that. There's the remote possibility of you being in the wrong place at the wrong time and not being forewarned. But most of the stuff takes place when they're hits that take place when somebody's arriving at their house or just leaving their house, right? And most of it, when it's not at their house, it's taking place in bars, casinos, and nightclubs. Hopefully, as missionaries, we're not going to those places all that often. Okay, so anyway, we don't. Yes, we hear of stuff happening, but it's not as much. And there's crime. Yeah, there's a possibility of crime with like any city, but for the most part, we feel very safe and stuff happening around. But again, we're not part of it. So, but we do appreciate your prayers for the ministry, that the ministry would go on. Any questions or comments about anything you saw or? I guess that's it then. Thank you so much. Again, appreciate you guys. I love you. And it's an honor to be a part of what you do. Pastor.